Hey YouTube, this is Detroit Borg, and like I promised in my unboxing video of the MacBook Air, I'm going to do some testing to compare it to a traditional MacBook. Now the MacBook on the left, like I've mentioned in my last video, is a aluminum MacBook from April 2009, so this is before they started calling them MacBook Pros, but their specs are somewhat similar. The MacBook has a 2.4 gigahertz Core 2 Duo, with 4 gigs of RAM and a 320 gigabyte hard drive or 250 gigabyte hard drive. I don't remember at this moment. But it has a spinning hard drive, and that's the important difference. Now the MacBook Air has a 1.4 gigahertz Core 2 Duo with a 64 gigabyte solid state drive, and it only has 2 gigs of RAM. So for my first test, I just want to do a boot test to see how they differ. Now I should point out while this is booting that the MacBook or aluminum MacBook has some other software that the MacBook Air does not have installed. So there is some more stuff to boot up than the MacBook Air. However, I have deactivated everything running in the dock. So nothing in the dock should be booting at login. So there isn't apps loading at all. There are just other background processes running, such as WeatherBug and some other things. So that doesn't account for the significant difference here. It's largely thanks to the fact that the operating system is booting from a hard drive versus a flash drive. So that takes quite a bit more time to load. And so in the end, you can see that the aluminum MacBook took about 40 seconds longer to load than the MacBook Air. So for my next test, I'm just going to do a sleep test. So very similar, very quick. The MacBook Air seemed to go a little faster. Now to wake it up, I'm just going to tap the space bar. Again, the MacBook Air is a little quicker. Now for my next test, I just want to boot some apps, and the first app I want to try is iTunes. Now I've cleared the content out of all of them, so they're just booting the app. They're not booting or loading their content in them. So let's get them going at the same time. So the MacBook Air was a little faster, but they're pretty close together. So for my next test, we're going to try Safari. The important thing to keep in mind is because both these computers are on the same home network, loading content from the internet means they're robbing each other's bandwidth. So it's not a fair test of their internet speeds, but we're going to try anyway. So again, the MacBook Air was substantially faster. Again, I'm not sure if that's just the internet speed or what, but that was pretty fast. Let's just load a website. Let's go to YouTube. So again, I can't really trust this test just because they're robbing each other's bandwidth, but what I would like to do is load some sort of high-def video. Now we got the high-def video loaded. Let's go ahead and play it back. Hey YouTube, it's Detroit Borg, and here we have the new MacBook Air. This is the 11.6-inch standard configuration, so it comes with 2 gigs of RAM, a 1.4 gigahertz. Alright, so again, I mute myself, but generally, the video quality looks about the same. There is no stuttering or anything like that. We have to get to some movement here. There we go. But you can see it's just as smooth as the MacBook. So there's no problem playing high-def video from YouTube. Now for my next test, I'm just going to boot iPhoto 11. There is no photographs in iPhoto, so this will just be a speed test of the app booting, not compiling and searching for the photos themselves. So let's launch them simultaneously. So there you go, the MacBook Air was a little faster. Now my next test, we're going to boot iMovie, and in this test we're going to actually import a movie. I've copied a movie onto each desktop. They're the exact same movie recorded with my high-def flip video cam. It's about 12 seconds. So first we're just going to boot iMovie 11. So it looks like the MacBook was a little faster. Now let's go ahead and import a movie. So we're going to select the file and import and see which one does it faster. So indeed, the MacBook is faster. This is where that better processor and more RAM comes in handy. So for my next test, we're going to go ahead and export this video. Okay, so they've been imported to the project, and I'm going to make this very simple. We're going to add a title sequence. All right, now let's just export this project. So let's go to Share, and we're going to do in high def 720p. All right, now on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. So once again, the MacBook is faster. The MacBook Air is still working. All right, so there is about, I don't know, 30 seconds difference between the two in that event. So you can see when you're processing video, you're going to be better off with a higher end processor from a MacBook versus the MacBook Air, but you certainly will get by with the MacBook Air if you want to do that. I'm pretty impressed with how well a 1.4 gigahertz processor actually processes video. You certainly can process high def videos with your MacBook Air. You're just not going to do them as quickly. Now let's go ahead and play those projects. So we're going to maximize the screen, and we're going to click play. Now for the next test, I just want to compare the speaker performance of the MacBook versus the MacBook Air. Of course, hearing the speakers through another device is sort of misleading, but you can at least hear the difference in terms of its volume. But let me go ahead and get this YouTube video playing. And what I'm going to do is just mute one at a time so you can hear the difference. We're going to try and get them playing at the exact same time. Hey YouTube, it's Detroit Borg, and here we have the new MacBook Air. This is the 11.6 so that's the MacBook Air. Standard configuration, so it comes with 2 gigs of RAM, a 1.4 gigahertz processor, M graphics processor, MacBook, and it has the standard 64 gigabytes of internal storage. So indeed, the MacBook is quite a bit louder than the MacBook Air. There are 2 USB ports. There is one audio output, and of course the MagSafe. And there is a microphone on the side, and we'll take a look once we get it out of its box. If we look at the back, we'll see some of the specs. And also to point out, there is quite a bit more bass on this, so it's a little deeper sound. This is a more of a high-pitched sound, although it does sound pretty good for a small Mac. Now for my last test, I'm going to go ahead and shut them down. I've already shut down all of the apps that were running in the dock. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. So once again, the MacBook Air was a little faster. Now I just want to take a moment to comment on these two devices. I have to say I'm a big fan of the MacBook Air versus the MacBook at this time, largely because the MacBook is very big and very heavy. It's a very nice machine, but I think it's better as a desktop / laptop, and this is much better as a laptop. It's much more portable. The keyboard is a lot more comfortable to use because of the slope design. This tall, flat, and square shape isn't the most comfortable thing to use, especially if you're using it on a desk or even on a lap. But this runs a lot cooler. It doesn't heat up like the MacBook Air does. Generally, this is a lot more pleasant to use, even though the keyboard is not backlit. Although I'm learning to get by without the backlit keyboard, I thought I would hate this computer without a backlit keyboard, but it turns out it's not a big deal. You can actually see the keyboard pretty well with the light of the screen. Overall, I'm also very surprised by the performance of the MacBook Air. I thought for sure I would notice a significant decline versus my MacBook, but for all the apps I use, the MacBook Air is more than adequate. In fact, it seems to be quite a bit faster on some of them. So booting up my most frequently used apps is actually much faster, and for me that's much more useful, and we can thank the SSD for that. In conclusion, the MacBook is definitely the right computer if you want to do video processing or gaming or other processor intensive applications, while the MacBook Air is definitely the way to go if you're just doing Safari, iPhoto, iTunes, web browsing, social networking like TweetDeck, that sort of thing, this is more than adequate. It's very fast to load apps. It's faster to boot than the MacBook. It's faster to come out of sleep. It holds its battery charged longer. It's a lot more portable. It's much more comfortable to use on the lap. And it certainly has a very high quality screen. It is smaller, so you do strain a little more to see it if you're not close to it. But like I said, it's a lot more lightweight, so it's a much more comfortable computer to use. The MacBook is for power users. It's actually overkill for my needs because I do all my work on the iMac. So if you have a desktop system and you want a portable computer, I think the MacBook Air is definitely the way to go. And even if you want to do video processing with a MacBook Air, you still get by. You just won't do it as quickly as a MacBook or an iMac. So once again, guys, this is Detroit Borg taking a quick look at the performance difference of the MacBook Air versus the MacBook Pro. Thanks for watching.